Good evening. The Washington County Quorum Court Jail Law Enforcement Courts Committee meeting is called to order. I'm going to lead us in a prayer and a pledge tonight. Father God, we love you, we honor you, we praise you. We thank you for all your blessings and all you do for us. We thank you for this day. We ask tonight that you hold up all county employees, keep them safe, guide them in their work, and particularly, Father God, we pray for our law enforcement officers, our detention officers, and all of our first responders. Give us wisdom and courage tonight to conduct the business of the Washington County citizens. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Join me in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on our agenda is the approval or the adoption of the agenda. Are there any proposed changes? Have a motion to
Motion by Willie.
motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Tonight we're going to try something new. Miss Myra is controlling the microphones tonight. So when I give you the floor, she's the one pushing the buttons. Item 3 on the agenda is the juvenile detention report. Director Christopher Tingsley.
Good evening, Justices. In the month of February, we had 21 intakes, with the average length of stay being 8 days. The highest number of intakes were misdemeanor probation violations at 4. Of the 21 intakes, 19 were from Washington County, 1 was from Madison County, and 1 was from Pulaski County. Of the 19 intakes from Washington County, 14 were Division 3 and 5 were Division 8. There were 8 transports, 2 were law enforcement transports, and 6 were performed by the Juvenile Detention Center. Are there any questions at this time? Yes, sir. You all have a good evening.
The Enforcement Activity Report, Chief Deputy Jay Cantrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay Cantrell with Sheriff's Office. You've got the enforcement report in front of you. Nothing really out of the ordinary in our monthly report there. We'll brief you quickly on a couple of incidents that happened Friday night. We had a call out at Morrow of an anonymous call to check the welfare of a lady at a residence, and that her husband had a failure to appear warrant for drug charges. So they were concerned about the female's welfare and then the 2 5-year-old boys. We got out there, and the suspect barricaded himself in the house, wouldn't let the kids out or the wife out. So we had about a 4-hour standoff or 5-hour standoff. Finally negotiated for him to come out peacefully. But the big story behind that is the people at the Morrow store, the Morrow cash store down there, came out, opened up their store, provided us their Wi-Fi access so we could utilize Wi-Fi for our responders. They cooked pizza for our first responders, for our deputies, for the ambulance people that were on standby. They provided drinks. They provided restroom facilities, all at all at no cost, just because they just wanted to help out the community and be there to help out. So really appreciate Clark and Jackie Reed for stepping up and helping us through that situation. Fortunately, everybody made it through with no injuries, and so everything turned out good. Immediately on the heels of that, we got a call of a shooting over on the other side of the county at the county line east of Madison, or east of Elkins. Her father and son arguing. The son shot the father in the chest with a .410 shotgun. He's going to be all right, but still got some pretty serious injuries. Still working on that to figure out why they were involved in their altercation, but pretty busy night Friday night. The next big thing is the sheriff's office. You know, you can see our training hours. The thing that's going on this week at the sheriff's office is the Criminal Justice Institute of Little Rock, down at Little Rock, sponsors a class called Supervisors, the Principles of Supervision for Law Enforcement, and it's a pretty intense 4-week course. They do a week a month for 4 weeks, or for 4 months. Typically have it at Little Rock, but we were able to get that up here, so we've got 35 people from around this area going to the sheriff's office for this really intensive supervisor training. So happy to have that in Northwest Arkansas. Saves us from having to have lodging and meal expenses for sending deputies to Little Rock for training. So we're glad they're here. But besides that, everything's going pretty good at the sheriff's office. Oh, we do have a job fair tomorrow. The Veterans Department, Mr. Dykes down here at the the Veterans Services Office, has put together a job fair at the Fayetteville Library tomorrow. And so we'll have deputies down there. I think there'll be other county representatives there that are seeking employees. So hopeful that we get some good interest out of that. So be glad to answer any questions anyone might have about the enforcement side.
Yes, thank you. I just want to mention the fact that the radio system in Morrow, without the hotspot at the store, you don't have no service down there. And that's going to be one of the good points about the AWIN radio, because the tower's now within about 2 miles of that store where you was. So I hope it takes care of all that radio traffic down there, because there is none right now.
Right, yeah, we had had no cell service.
That's one area that's really, really terrible.
Yep, and the radio service is very poor, so we'll be excited that's happened.
What was your count today?
Randall will have that number.
Oh,
He
okay.
comes up, he's got that.
Have you had any numbers back on the architect stuff that we've been working on the pods in the jail?
They've given us some preliminary information. They've been up twice now to do site surveys, brought their engineers, went out and located all the utility lines, underground utilities, overhead utilities, got those all marked out on their drawings. So they're currently drawing plans as we speak.
So we'll know a little later on kind of where we are on numbers.
Yes, sir.
That's just on the pod building, on the,
That's on our COVID
on-
expansion with building the minimum security metal type building, and then
I'm gonna
remodeling.
call that the Band-Aid.
Well,
So, okay, thank you.
yeah, we're thinking that's going to be about 18 million. They put a COVID factor in there of another million, so 19 or just a little over.
Thank you, Chairman. One quick question on the Friday night's incident with the father and son. Was drugs or alcohol involved in any?
Well, don't know for sure, but that's a possibility. That's something that they're looking at to see if I know there's been drug and alcohol abuse in the past out there, but I don't know if this incident was precipitated by that. The victim has not been very cooperative at this point, so he hasn't been willing to give a statement yet, but maybe he will soon.
When things like this happen, what kind of procedures as far as taking blood alcohol levels or checking out for drugs? Do y'all do any?
Yes, yeah, they'll obviously he's at the hospital. The victim's at the hospital, so
he's at the hospital.
so they've checked for blood
And the
for
son who
drugs and
shot the-
alcohol, and we can subpoena those records.
And as far as the son who shot the father?
Yeah, he didn't present any indications that he might have been on anything. So
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, we're good. Good to go, all right. Starting out 4.2, as you can see our numbers. The daily average was 779, was increasing. Was over 800. I think last meeting, like the next day, we was up to 810 high count. And the rest of it's about the same. And then JC, I can't even talk tonight. JP Madison said we might ought to call the state. Well, it's amazing after you said that. So the next 3 weeks up, they've took 100. And nobody knows, one of them deals, it's great. So we went from 800 back down to 700, which is starting to grow again, but that gave us a little bit of relief there. 4.3, the pretrial still growing. I think due to the population, good police work, and the bonds on a lot of these people, they're not getting out. They're going to have to post bonds so somebody can keep up with them. So that's that part of there. 4.4, as you can see, the booking 702, almost a little less than January. I think some of that bad weather might have helped us a little. That's usually the only thing. It slows our business down, is snow and ice. But I want to go back again to, like we do every month, our daily average was 779 up to 810, and we turned loose 325. If you see the 702 and the two different orders, so 325 is ones that was nonviolent, eligible to get out of jail, they should be in jail. So, if you add that to the 779, that's the number that's growing right now. 4.5, that's a breakdown of everything, but you can see the high count as of 3/1 back down to 718, which is fantastic compared to we was over 800. But to do all that and say all that is great, so we're only down to 129 sleeping on the floor, which is, that's better. But, and also I wanted to thank Chairman to coming down and took a tour of the jail. That was fantastic. We appreciate that. That's
Thank
all I
you.
have. If you have any questions.
Yes, it's still just a minute. I went down last Thursday because it had been 2.5 years since I had a tour of the jail, and I'll guarantee you these folks aren't painting as grim a picture as what I saw when I was down there. I mean, every pod has 10 to 12 more people in it than it was designed to house. They've got people stored everywhere. Their staff is short-staffed. You go into what used to be the work release program. That's where they're quarantining now. They've got 3 pods in there with probably 135 people quarantined with 2 deputies watching over that whole operation. I mean, it is just, it's really not a good situation. And the other thing I learned that I never knew before, I know what the detainees do when they don't like the meal they're served. They throw it against the wall. And then our sheriff's department has to figure out how to clean up that mess. But we got some hard decisions to make. Any questions for the Major Densler? Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee report. I am not capable.
All right, so due to the ice storm, we actually met a week later. We met this last Thursday, but we did talk about House Bill 955 in the federal level, which is the inmates able to add mental health to their insurance that they can apply for up to 30 days before their release. And the jail does have somebody that is there to help the inmates to fill out those forms for insurance. And they're working on getting more of the defendants to fill out that insurance before they are released. We also have a current average length of stay for those who go into drug court as 60, and we're trying to reduce that down to 30 so that it's more likely for them to keep their apartments and or their jobs. And we're hoping to have a diversion case manager, which is what we've given to you is the job description that we're hoping to have, and then we're going to put that through so that we can get you an ordinance hopefully next month for you guys to take action on. We're also working for future amnesty days. Matt and Leanna are trying to get with judges so that they can hopefully do that in April. And I have contacted St. Paul's to see when they are available to host that because they have expressed willingness to host that. We are also doing more research into mental health court and what we can do with that. Dr. Laura Tyler is getting information from other health courts, other mental health courts in Sebastian County and Jonesboro, as well as grant information so that we can have that funded through a grant. And we will be meeting again this month. So 2 meetings in 1 month, but just getting everything moving forward.
I can elaborate a little bit.
Yeah.
I've been in discussions with Leanna Houston from the Public Defender's Office, and she wanted to be here tonight but couldn't. So one of the things that we talked about with this new position that we're going to be recommending to the Quorum Court, that's a position that is, I think it's kind of a hybrid. It's designed to really get people into alternative courts, whether it be drug court, veterans court, and I know that returning home isn't a diversionary court, but it's a diversionary program. So that's what the main focus is, but it's also going to be sort of an individual, kind of a hybrid between the specialty courts and pretrial services. The issue that kept coming up was one with the Public Defender's Office, and you'll notice that our recommendation for this position is that they be placed under the umbrella of the Public Defender's Office. The reason for that is for purposes of confidentiality, because there were some concerns with the Public Defender's Office of someone going down to the jail and talking to a defendant who's just been arrested, getting information from them that sometimes these defendants will talk to anybody, and in order for those communications to be protected and remain confidential, if this person is under the umbrella of the Public Defender's Office, then they're considered part of that attorney-client privilege because they're considered an employee. It'd be no different than one of their staff members going to talk about one of their cases. I mean, as I told Leanna, I have no intention whatsoever of trying to use something that one of these individuals would say to this person, but nevertheless, I think it puts the individual more at ease if they think they're talking to someone who's not going to go out and tell everybody else what they're being told. So that's one thing we're focusing on. We got the numbers, as Drew mentioned, from drug court, and Drew ran the numbers, and I checked to make sure they were accurate because I want to set a proper guideline here. But the average time of stay between, or the length of time from arrest to acceptance into the drug court program is on average 60 days. And we think that it is a realistic goal to cut that down to 30. And not all these individuals that are going into drug court are in custody, so you're not going to have a savings of every single person going into drug court. You're not going to realize that same amount of savings in jail time for every single one of them, but those individuals who are there, I mean, that's less time it's freeing up more bed space. As for the Warrant Clinics, I've talked to Leanna, I've talked to some other folks, and right now we're trying to work around our schedule between my office and the Public Defender's office, because we've got a heavy trial schedule coming up in the next few weeks, so we're trying to get past that, and we're also dealing with shortages in our offices. We're still losing folks, so we're dealing with that. But we hope to sometime in April. And also, I want to give. I suggested, which I guess I shouldn't say I suggested because it was really Leanna's idea, of advertising this. And we did advertise it, but one thing that we want to advertise is strongly suggesting and asking any individual that wants to participate to call in advance. That way, hopefully we'll have a list of people who want to come in, and we'll be prepared for those people. Now, we're not going to turn anybody away simply because it's not, invitation or reservation only, but one thing that we talked about making it move more smoothly is if we know in advance a number of people that are coming, that way we can pull files in advance, we can look at it, we can see what cases we're talking about, and we can be more prepared when they do show up to get those cases resolved. So, Nick, what do you have to add? I've yapped on.
Yeah, this caseworker, I would say the most important piece of it is this is somebody working for the Public Defender's Office that's hyper-focused on getting individuals, low-level charges, out of jail and into our community programs, into different community opportunities. And for example, drug court, they need their individuals to be working and they still need their housing. So that program doesn't have housing and doesn't, place them in employment. That's a service they can help with, but that's not a part of what they do. So if the individual gets out and still has those things in place, they're that much more likely to be successful in drug court. And so this staff member would be focused on identifying these people right when they come in. And typically right now they're going to 8.1 hearing, and then they have a month before they go to their next hearing. And during that month, they don't have an attorney. So no one's working on their case because no one has the police reports yet. No one has a lot of the different things. So this individual is not focused on the charges, but focused on what services in the community could positively affect this individual, and then be able to then present that to Public Defender's Office, the attorney, and then the prosecutor's office, in hopes to speed up that population getting through jail. Because we're already saying if this is an individual that qualifies for a diversionary program, we're not concerned about them being in the public. We just believe they need the resources to be successful within the public. So I ask you to strongly consider that. We'll come back next time with a little more information on the right approvals for the salary, $45,000, but that falls in line with the drug court caseworker. So that's why we did that. The very last page in your packet has that information. So that's all we have.
Sorry, I didn't know if you were about to say anything, but one other quick thing. In addition to that, we're still looking at a public defender position from the state at the jail, to what we had talked about. One thing that in our pretrial services that Leanna and I had talked about is not necessarily doing a warrants clinic, but doing having someone at the jail who can look into cases in a similar fashion of what we did at the warrants clinic. So we're still looking into that. I'm told it's in the works, but I can't promise anything. So hopefully, at some point in the near future, we're going to have a state-funded public defender at the jail who can assist with that. Because Nick made the comment that if you've got, this programs director, or however you want to refer to him or her, and an attorney down there, that gives a lot of opportunity for some headway. So, sorry, Drew.
I was gonna say, if there are any questions, we can answer them, so.
I like the ingenuity, I like the innovativeness that you guys are coming with this. I appreciate your work. Gotta have metrics. What are our expectations? What are our expectations with this position? What metrics are we gonna measure this position by? I understand cutting the drug court from 60 to 30, the entrance into that's a great one, I think. But I think for us to sink our teeth into this, we really gotta have some metrics. I know I've preached on that, and we gotta have a baseline of where we're at and an expectation of where we're going. If we're gonna start investing this type of money into these type of programs and doing some new things, is we gotta have metrics. And that's the only thing I would prod you guys on, is please bring us some metrics and some expectations of where we're going.
Yeah, so the first metric would be the 60 days to 30 days, and then a midterm metric would be maybe getting that down, like maybe if we get it to 45 days, reassess how many people are still in the jail, are there reoffenders, are these people that we are putting in programs, are they reoffending or are they not reoffending and they're staying out of jail? So that's when we can measure that. The recidivism of that is a big metric that we can measure that with. And then long-term would be building more programs and seeing how we can keep people out of jail, not just get the jail numbers down, but keep them out of jail.
Good. Yeah, and I think to have something like that written up with this would be really helpful, I think, when we try to start making funding decisions. And then
Right.
also, I mean, the critical thing, anything we can do to save jail bed days. I mean, I
Right,
know you guys
so-
get it. That's the critical one, but that's where I would think your committee really, really needs to focus on that issue.
Right, so we can't measure metrics until they actually happen. And so when we can tell you where everything is right now, and we can tell you the potential and what areas this can affect and impact. And then we can give you that 6 months down the road, this is how it has impacted, so that you can decide whether or not to fund it for another year.
That's great. That's exactly what we're asking for. Don't overestimate what we don't know. Does that make sense?
The other thing that came about from our last meeting is we found out that drug court's at capacity. I didn't know if that was a thing, but it's based on the caseload of the probation officer. And they're currently filling a few different positions to be able to take that cap off. And so currently there are 50 individuals that potentially qualify for drug court that are waiting to be assessed, that cannot be until they have the staff to accept them. And then we're finding, and we're in the same situation. Every time a cap bed becomes empty, there's 10, 15 referrals for the one bed. Like, we don't have enough diversionary programs right now, is kind of what I'm getting at. And this specific individual, my hope is, would be working in the community, building relationships, raising awareness between nonprofits, or between, if it's drug court, being able to say, like, if we had this one extra person, we would be able to take on 50 more people. Because I think that's what we're gonna find out, is that we're very limited on diversionary programs in Washington County right now. And so even if we identified 100 people in jail today, it doesn't mean there's a program to accept them because of everyone's at capacity.
Thank you very much. I can't tell you how excited I am about what y'all are doing. I mean, that's exactly what we need. It takes time, and I think we all see that, but y'all just like eating an elephant, or going on a long journey. My question is about how many people do you estimate that this is gonna affect? I mean, are we talking about 50 people? Are we talking about 100 people? Are we talking about just a ballpark number of I mean, I know that, for example, Nick, where you're at, that there's a limited number of people that you can help. And it takes, so, I mean, you're right, it's gonna take a lot of people to have the programs out there for these guys to go to. But if you can give me some idea about what our goal is, or where we're headed on, again, how many people are even eligible for this? Thank you.
So We don't have an exact number, and so that would all depend on how many community programs are available and how many beds they have available. For example, if the Salvation Army has beds available, or if CAP has beds available, or if Returning Home could do that. And so that would definitely be something we can look into and bring back to you next month. I think they both have something to say.
That's what I'd ask Matt, or maybe the prosecutor's office, the public defender's office, if we could just, for everybody that's currently in jail, assess the percentage, if we just took a snapshot right now for next meeting, that we could show up and say, this percentage would be eligible for consideration. Obviously, we can't get into pleas or anything like that, but.
That is a difficult question to answer, but it's something that can look at and be estimated, because a lot of the folks that are in the drug court program, there's certain limitations on what a drug court program can accept. They don't accept violent felons. But a lot of the people that are going in are people that that our office is citing out, or that a judge has released on their own recognizance. So they're not sitting in jail. The ones we're going to be focusing on are the ones who would qualify, who are sitting in because they missed a court date, so they've got a failure to appear. So that's a number that we can look at and try to get an estimate. Probably Judge Beaumont would be the best one to answer that question, to see on an average month how many people get accepted to her program that are coming from jail. So that's a question that we'll ask Judge Beaumont. That will give us kind of a baseline. I don't know if that will be a good, I don't know if that'd be a good estimate of where what we're shooting for, but I think that's probably the best that we can come up with, because, I could go through the detainee list and look at all the people who are charged with a failure to appear and some drug charge, but sometimes it's a non-drug charge, but it's a property crime or something that is drug related. That they're those individuals that go to drug court. So I think it's best that we check with Judge Beaumont and have a more solid answer for that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know, Mr. Durrett, you and I talked about this over email, but I wanted to, bring it up here in quorum court. It sounds like y'all are definitely moving forward with some of the things that were recommended for the county back in the 2020 criminal justice assessment, like with the, the drug court. It sounds like y'all are looking for grant funds to get that funded. And so one of the things that I kind of had a suggestion of is, if the committee had an interest in systematically looking through some of the other areas that you haven't really focused on yet in that report, and systematically going through and putting a price tag on each one, how much it would cost to implement each one, and then looking through the rules of the American Rescue Plan, of the money that we've gotten for that, and seeing which ones might qualify, to have some of that funding be used for that, because it sure would be a great idea to use some of this federal money that we've gotten to move the ball forward, on some of these things.
That's definitely something that I can do over the next month or so. And as far as putting a price tag on it, it would include finding other places that have that position who are comparable size to Washington County, because we're not going to pay somebody the same amount that they would make in New York City. And we're also not going to pay them the same amount that they would make in Crawford County. And so it's a little more in-depth than just doing a one-to-one. But that is something that we can start working on, and as we come up with those and look at the ARPA funding, and as we come up with that and look at the rules, we can definitely present them to you.
Yeah, and I know that, this was an outside report, so I know maybe y'all aren't looking at implementing every single thing from the report, and you may be looking at some things that are outside the report. But as y'all mentioned, that there's an extreme lack of diversionary programs available in Washington County right now, and maybe some of this could be eligible to be used in that direction.
And just one thing, this is may be neither here nor there, but some of the things have been implemented that don't cost anything. Some of the suggestions, like the suggestion that of the elimination of any contact between the prosecutor's office and the judge in setting bonds. Judge has already done that, and he doesn't seek our input on bonds, so he sets bonds. So we've done that, obviously setting up this committee. So there are things that have been done that don't require a price tag, but I think that's a good idea to look at the others. What we did is we just began with triaging. You know, what needs attention the most, and we're focusing, and so we can certainly look at the entire thing and see where to go next. So.
Thanks.
Waiting, there it is, red light. I believe my question was already answered after I came up and sat down, but what I was going to ask you, and I appreciate what y'all are doing. With your study, you will be able to determine how, if an increase in staff in the drug court can help them manage several more people.
Yeah.
And that's a biggie for me as far as I'm concerned. I appreciate that.
Each parole officer adds about 80 to 100 to the capacity of a court, depending on the level of engagement between the participant and the parole officer. So if the parole officer just needs to do a 30-minute check once a month, then they can do more. If they need to do weekly checks, they can do less. So adding one parole officer would take care of the 50 that are waiting in jail right now.
Thank you, and I want to thank you again for what you're doing here. This is awesome. It's going to help reduce the number in the crowded jail. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two questions. One is, J.P. Rio Stafford's question about the funding from American Rescue Plan made me remember this. What happened with that proposal that was sort of an idea, it wasn't a formal proposal, but for the training room? I think you all were proposing that it be like in a trailer. Where's that?
We haven't talked about that in the past couple of months, but that is something that with the COVID expansion of the jail, they are hoping to have more program space. So that is something that I've talked to Sheriff Helder and Deputy Chief Cantrell about that as well, and they're hoping to have that space with this specific expansion.
Okay. And then speaking of agencies and bed space what about Magdalene Serenity House? Are you all talking about them? I mean, I feel like April has come to us several times. She's very supportive of what we're doing. And it seems like we're sort of missing an opportunity to formally partner with them like we have with Returning Home. And it just seems like we need to sort of, if we could add one bed, just with a little bit of money, and the hope is that person, doesn't come back, right? They go out and they don't come back. And I know there's I have a letter from a person from the jail who tells me the 7 different years that he's been there. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
so that's somebody we can definitely reach out to now and start that ball rolling. That's something that this diversionary case manager would do, is to reach out to people who, if anybody has ever expressed interest in helping with any kind of diversionary program. Today, Nick mentioned the local college had said that they had evaluated education and called it a diversionary program. And so this case manager would be responsible for knowing those programs and reaching out to those specific programs to partner with them in such a way that maybe not to the extent that we do with the returning home, but in a way that we don't have to fund, but also we can know where empty beds are.
Okay, are you in contact with April? Have you made contact with
I
her?
have not, but I
Okay.
wrote that down so that I will,
Okay.
I will email her tomorrow.
Okay, good. Okay, I just want to make sure that.
Yes.
That dot
I
had been
appreciate that.
connected for you.
I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree and support what Justice Madison just said, because April's my neighbor. She lives right behind me. And I asked her, get your proposal ready and present it to the court. Get it ready and bring it. Don't wait for us to reach out to you. So she's ready for that, but this is a great fit for Magdalene's house. That wasn't my question, though, but I do support that, and I think it's going to be fantastic for the women that are being detained. You mentioned at the beginning on insurance available. Can you elaborate on that? I missed that we're not currently offering.
It's not insurance from the county, it's Medicare and.
It's Medicare.
Yeah, or Medicaid.
Medicaid.
It's Medicaid, it's the federal
Okay.
Affordable Care Act. That as part of the Affordable Care Act, people coming out of jail can apply for Medicaid 30 days before their release. And so in the House of Representatives has presented a bill that last year that would include mental health services in that insurance. And so it's something that has been longstanding, that this has just always been a thing where people who are below the poverty line or anyone in America can apply for this insurance, but this is how we supply it to those coming out of jail.
Do you know what the price tag is? I mean, what is the cost?
I don't believe it is a cost to the county. I believe it's just a federal. Nick probably knows better.
Yeah, there's no cost. So right now, what's been happening for years is in the Department of Corrections, individual before they're released fills out all their paperwork. And so once they get out, it's a huge step up. Basically, they're a month ahead in the process of getting accepted. So that means they only have to typically wait a month after they get out to get insurance, just because the process is really slow.
That's fantastic.
And so now the county's starting to do that, and that's huge, because if an individual is coming to a program like ours, the first week you're trying to assess, do you have any dental needs? Do you have any eye care? But if you don't have insurance and you've identified all these things they need, it makes it difficult to get those things taken care of. So this is exciting that they're implementing that, and it's going to be a huge help for sure, especially in this diversionary setting.
That's great news. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate everything you all are doing. It's a tough job. This committee and this court is going to have to make some tough decisions real soon. And I echo what Justice Deacon says. I need some metrics. I need to see where we are today and where we're going and how we're going to get there. Because I encourage my colleagues, call the sheriff and go down and take a tour, and it's scary down there. If we're arresting 20 people a day and turning 18 of them out on the street, I'm not sure that's what the citizens of Washington County expect from us. We have a constitutional requirement to provide a jail for the county. So we need to know that we can move the needle and that we are moving the needle, and we need to be able to measure it. You can't manage what you don't measure. So that's your chore. Let's figure out how we're going to do that. Any other questions? Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Along the back of what you just said, I've had my neighbors say, please use my name. I want to feel safe in my home, and I don't if these people are being let out and we don't know who they are and they go to our neighborhoods because they are the upper end or by the lake and whatever. And Jan Shattuck said, please use my name. And the others said, don't use, just use Jan's name. But they said, that is your constitutional duty, is to protect and defend us that are quietly at home being law-abiding citizens. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Public comment. We have a 12-minute period with a 3-minute limit for each individual. Please state your name and address.
Mark Scalise, 3268 Hearthstone Drive, Fayetteville, Arkansas. Thank you for allowing me to address you. I got this report at the last meeting, and I'm extremely confused about this 230 bed number. Everybody wants metrics. You're talking about metrics. Why 230? Why aren't we doubling the size of this jail? You're behind the 8 ball right now, and you're just playing behind the whole time if you go with 230. Right now, we should have 1,100 people in jail in a 710-bed jail. 230 only gets us to 940. Where's the logic of that? You know, there's the old saying is that there's never enough time to do it right the first time, but there's always enough time to do it again. So are we going to like do this wrong the first time and then spend 3 times the amount of money to do it again? Because that's what I'm hearing. And I don't understand it at all. This should be put onto the ballot. The public should vote on this in the November election, in the general election, and you should let the public decide if they want to pay for a 710-bed jail, if they value public safety over a couple mil increase. I think I'd rather pay a couple mil than I would the increase in my insurance for my house, my boat, my car, my whatever, because every crime is running rampant in the neighborhoods. And by the way, I've got some metrics. You know, we're running at half the incarceration rate of the national average, half. So we don't have, it's not like we're just putting a bunch of people in jail unnecessarily, you know, more than we should. We've got, I mean, I could go on, you know, just with the numbers about how they add up. By the time this thing gets built, we're going to have another 30,000 people in our populace. So hypothetically, racially, that's another 100 people that should be in jail. So it just goes on and on. 240 to 250,000 more people in the next 20 to 25 years. We're going to double our population, and we're going to throw 230 beds at it that we already have full. So, you know, just to kind of wind it up, let's not play catch up. Let's do it right the first time, and spend the money wisely that needs to be spent. And thank you for letting me say my 2 cents.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Beth Koger. I live at 3661 Embry Drive, Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I'm in JP-elect for District 9. I'd like to invite everyone on March the 16th at noon, our nonprofit, the Arkansas Justice Reform Coalition, is hosting Sarah Minion from the Vera Institute of Justice in New York. The Vera Institute of Justice is nationally known for their expertise in policies and addressing mass incarceration. They have done a deep dive into our county jail statistics, our data here in Washington County, and it'll be up to date. And she's going to talk about what she's found doing that and what we could be doing to change it. And it's at noon at St. Paul's. It'll be a hybrid meeting, and we're having lunch if you want to come in person. But I would like to extend that invitation to all of you, to everyone on the court, and to everyone in the audience. Thank you.
Next speaker. Seeing none, this meeting's adjourned.